Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL. NFL draft prospects and rookies. Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man Jay Rich. Count that money, man. Now wipe the crust out of your eyes. Get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. GMGP, good people, welcome. This is Wake Up with Ray G. It is Wednesday, hump day, May the 3rd, 2023. Thank y'all for waking y'all asses up. I appreciate y'all being in the building. We got a big show today, talking some 2024 prospects. Let's get it. Big win, Jay Rich, by my Lakers last night, baby. We got it done. 1-0 over the doggone Warriors. I was up all night watching the Laker game. How y'all doing this morning? Who we got in the building? Let's see. Rhonda Commander in the building. What's going on? Elwood, GMGP to you. Josh, good morning, my friend. Conja, Dynasty Barry saying Marvin Harrison Jr., 101. Mike in the building. Zach, John, Jimbo, Matt Bruning in the building. Taylor Wolf. Marv equals 3 first. Let's get it. What's going on, Garrison? Appreciate everybody being in the building today. Jay Rich, how you doing over there, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, I'm happy for you. Your Lakers seeing some prosperity early in the playoffs. We'll see if they can make it happen in Chase Center too, no less.
They look gassed.
Gotta give them that credit.
They look gassed. I think
they gave it their all, right?
AD played the whole second half. They look gassed. I hope they could keep up this pace with the Warriors, but I'm happy my Lakers got a dub last night. Absolutely.
They only need one, right? They only need one. And your boy, Ray, Jordan Love.
Jordan Love, sorta.
Extension, sorta, maybe.
One air horn for Jordan Love.
Ripped up that fifth-year option, gave him $13 million guaranteed.
Yeah, they ripped it up.
Could be a backup, could be a starter.
Got 13.5 regard without throwing a pass, really. 13.5 for Jordan Love. So interesting way that the Packers structured that deal, but the Love era is underway. Aaron Rodgers is happy in New York, said that Garrett Wilson reminds him of a young Devontae Adams. So we'll see his price and ADP skyrocket over on Underdog Fantasy, where they have the biggest fantasy football contest ever. If you use the promo code WAKEUP, you get access to our Discord for free for the year. Jay, it's a dope community. Last night, we had a special guest in our Discord. I don't know if you were there for the live little Discord session we had with the patrons, but Paige DeMacos from the Draft Network was on the show and dropped some very interesting nuggets about the Arizona Cardinals, about the Atlanta Falcons, about Bijan Robinson. So get access to that, all our dope tools, and Underdog will match you 100% up to $100 if you're a first-time depositor. So use the promo code WAKEUP, enter the biggest fantasy football contest ever, and win that money, baby. We got to get to the money with Underdog Fantasy. Yeah, Jay, she came in last night when all the patrons were in there, and she gave us some firsthand conversations and insight into old Bijan Robinson and the Arizona Cardinals and some other things. So it was a treat to have her in the building. Shout out to the Draft Network. I'm a contributor over there, Jay. But we got a big show. Any more like news updates? Because we got a lot to get to today. I want to kind of pull up Dane Brugler's early look at the 24 mock. We'll start to talk about some people. We got some analytic stuff from Jordan Backus over there at Destination Devi that you can find inside of the Patreon service somewhere in there. It's a lot of stuff in there. But anything else news-wise, Jay? And then I'm gonna ask you a question, Jay, because I don't think you answered. You weren't in there last night. I'm looking around Twitter as these rookie drafts are going on. You're in some. They all look different, right? We've talked about this. After about 1-8, hell, some drafts 1-7, it's chaos. There's I'm seeing Rashee Rice in the first round. You got running back Charbonnet falling, Roshan Johnson up. You're in a couple of rookie drafts right now, Jay. Are you seeing any sort of consensus in the back of the first through the rest of the draft? Literally from like 110 through 412. it's just chaos out there, Jay. Are you seeing any trends, or is it just wild, wild west out there, man?
I wouldn't say consensus, but I would say I am seeing a lot of A-Chain in the first, right? A-Chain seems to be the guy that, if just based off what I'm seeing, is kind of in that RB3 range right now. Like you mentioned, Charbonnet kind of falling because Kenneth Walker's there, and some people are in on Kendre Miller, but not everybody is. But that's kind of the only stalemate I've seen. Everything else is, after that, though, it's whatever you want, get your guy. Mingo in the first round. I saw Mingo go 2-1 in a Superflex tight end premium league, right? I was hoping to get him at 203, and he was already gone, right? It is 100% after probably, I'd say after the first round receivers, kind of like you're saying, get your guy season. Whoever you want, whoever you think deserves to be up there, go get your guy. But definitely A-Chain, I would say, is the guy.
Hit the what sounder? Hit the what? Daniel said Gibbs went 101 in one of his that started yesterday. Good Lord. I mean,
repeat?
What?
Yeah, it is. It's chaos. It's chaos. But Jay, the question I want to ask you, and everybody watching the show, everybody tapping in live, everyone that watches this later, I'm seeing the expectations for Bijan Robinson, Jay, through the roof.
Way too high.
I'm seeing people. There were people yesterday who said that he was a lock, Jordan, for 2,000 yards this year on the ground, rushing, not total. There's no.
What?
Jay?
2,000?
2K. They said if Algier and Patterson can average 5.9 yards a carry, he's a lock. 2,000. Jay, the point is, the expectations, man, you look like shit, Jay. Good Lord. Get off the screen. The expectations for Bijan are sky high. And if there are ever any shoulders big enough to carry that, I guess it would be him. I'm not saying he doesn't have the talent to do that, but my question to everybody out there is, what if he finishes RB7 on the season, point per game, RB8, how do you think the dynasty community would feel? Would that be a disappointment? Would people be upset? Would people be, he's not that? What are the realistic outcomes, Jay? And I asked this to the patrons last night, and they were like 1,512. That's what I'm expecting, year one. 1,500 on the ground, 12 touchdowns. That doesn't include however many receptions there are. It's a lot of pressure to put on that young man. He's talented. I think just be mindful, Jay, right? Like, he goes out there and he has, like, it doesn't mean he's bad, but goddamn, man, 1,500 yards his first year, 2K on the ground, year one?
Yeah, that's a little crazy. And I wish I could give credit to the person who looked this stat up. I want to say it was Scott Barrett. I was just looking through his feed trying to find it. But the realistic outcome for Bijan probably isn't 2K, but it is pretty good, right? Someone looked up the stats of running backs who were taken really high in drafts, right? And kind of their potential opportunities in year one. And I believe the number was 292 touches on the year, which would be great, right? Like Najee Harris was a 300 touch guy. And I think Bijan could be a guy who gets very close to that. But to say that the yardage is going to approach anywhere near 2K is absolutely insane. Like 1,500 total, we should probably see that. But again, I don't want to say he's going to get 1,500 total yards because that's still a ton of yards. 1,300 on the ground, maybe 300, 400 through the air. Definitely realistic. But to still put that expectation as a projection on any player is insane because we talked about this when we talked about Bijan last time. Atlanta didn't throw to the running back too much. So I'll have to see kind of how they change their philosophy this year. On the ground, he should be great. Should see a ton of touches. But I still think that split between Algier and him will be more significant than people will expect. And I think that's the problem, is that everyone right now is probably on the sell Algier wave. And if the price was low enough, I might consider buying because I think he will have a role in the offense. So in some of our best ball leagues, he may be a guy you want. I think 300 touches should be an expectation or very close to it, right? 250 should come on the ground, I'd expect for sure. And so it just comes down to is how many opportunities can you get through the air? And honestly, Ray, I don't know what to expect there. I think if I was looking at past history with Arthur Smith, it would be a pretty low projection and people wouldn't like that. But we have to be realistic about his potential expectations. And so it's going to be sky high, though. It's Bijan. That's always going to be the case. That's just how people are, and I can't blame them for it. And if he hits, he's Zeke, right? I think we know that. If he hits, he's Zeke rookie year, Saquon rookie year. Like Saquon, I believe, had 2K his rookie year or very close to it. And that should be the expectation for some. It doesn't mean that it should be a realistic expectation for his outcomes, though.
Rhonda, this is my thought too. We are on the same page. Rhonda Commander says, I don't want Atlanta to run him into the ground. And I highly encourage any of the DD patrons to listen to I'll post it after the show. But the commentary provided by Paige yesterday, who knows people in Atlanta, who had some time to talk to Bijan, and she described him as he's the face of the franchise for the Atlanta Falcons, not the quarterback, not a wide receiver, not an outside linebacker. The face of the franchise for the Atlanta Falcons is Bijan Robinson, not just for on the field, but off the field as well. He's what's going to sell out that Mercedes. What's the name of the Falcon Stadium? It's is it Mercedes-Benz?
It's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Because it's the same. Oh, because they changed the Caesars Superdome. They used to be they used to have the Mercedes-Benz Superdome and the stadium, but now it's Caesar Superdome. But yeah, it's Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Like you don't want and everyone's just like, it's Arthur Smith. Look what he did with Derrick Henry. They're just going to do the exact same thing with Bijan. And first of all, Bijan and Derrick Henry are two very different builds of a running back, right? Derrick Henry, there's nobody like him. They're literally Brandon Jacobs, but he didn't have, half the talent that Derrick Henry has as a complete running back. But Derrick Henry's 6'3", 250 pounds, right? You don't want to slam your Ferrari, Bijan Robinson, up the gut on inefficient touches. And that doesn't mean he's not going to have games where he has to shoulder the load. And they're like, yo, Absolutely. We got to turn around and give it to you 28 times on the ground. We're going to throw it to you, and we need you this week. But week in and week out, I don't think Atlanta would want to do that to him. They want him to last and sustain, and they don't want an injury on his 31st carry of the game when he doesn't need to. And if you've got competent pieces behind you, it's just going to be curious to see how not just Atlanta, but the NFL proceeds forward with all these running backs, Jay. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. It's not going to be the Jahmyr Gibbs show in Detroit. He's going to get his touches, and hopefully they're efficient, and he's going to get his opportunity. But it makes sense, and it would behoove any team to sort of do that, Jay. And what I've continued to say is the litmus test for how the NFL values running backs, if the contracts this year weren't enough to already give us an indication on how they value the running back, you know who's due up for a contract after this year, right? You know
Jonathan Taylor.
Big JT, the new Trent Richardson, per people during the draft. Wild takes on Jonathan Taylor, but it will be very interesting to see what type of contract the Colts give him. Do the Colts tag him? You hear the Dallas Cowboys talking about it right now, that they realize and understand that the Ezekiel Elliott contract was a bad one and they should not have done it. But it'll be interesting to see. But I highly encourage any of the DD patrons who have access to the live streams to check that out. I'll post it after the show. Jay, but let's talk about the 2024 class. It's time, Jay. Finally. Man, I'm sick of talking about 2023, man. So Dane Brugler a couple of days ago put out an early look at ahead at his 24. Mock draft at 2024, Jay. And what position do you want to start with? You want to just start with the quarterback position, kind of look at his mock, go through some stuff. We got a lot of stuff that we want to kind of dive through. Let's start quarterback. So the Arizona Cardinals right now, according to Super Bowl odds, hold not just are favored to be the number 1 overall pick, but because they have the Houston Texans pick, they're projected to have 101 and 102 in the damn draft. Woo. What a franchise reset. And we did ask Paige about the Arizona Cardinals and their plan with Kyler Murray last year. But yes, Caleb Williams, Jay, is my QB1, should be everybody's QB1 in 2023. He's fantastic, man. I mean, you look at what he did at Oklahoma, transfers to USC, and wins a Heisman Trophy. You got his stats pulled up of what he did last year, Jay, in college?
Yeah, so he was third in the nation with 4,537 yards, first with 42 touchdowns, only 5 picks, and a QBR of 87.6, which was 5th in the country. Mm-hmm. Top five, pretty much everywhere across the board. Caleb, he was everything for that USC offense, though. You look and watch the games, like, they had a good running game, but when they really needed to play, it was always Caleb making it. And you, being a USC fan, obviously watched all those games. But yeah, I mean, you just look at what he did, and there was a question at one time, did he deserve that Heisman? But I think you look at his stats, the way he played, his advanced numbers back it all up. Caleb is definitely deserving of the potential 101 and is there right now for Dane Brugler.
Yeah, shout out to Jordan Backus, Director of Analytics at DD, for putting these weekly updates together in season. He does these every week. And you look at Caleb's production metrics, QBR, top in the class, adjusted yards per attempt, tops in the class in 2024, completion percentage right around 66%, and then rushing yard percentage. He gives you something on the ground. Not as much as old Drake May down there, who I don't think people understand how damn good Drake May is on the ground as he is through the air. But you see right off the bat, Caleb Williams, Drake May, the top two quarterbacks in this class. Now, let's move down to, let's just go down the board. Marvin Harrison Jr., Jay. Yeah, Big Marvin Harrison Jr. We were talking about Marv, and we need to get him a new nickname. But I think right now, if we were going to say early in Superflex drafts, you know how I'm out here, and there are people who say Anthony Richardson over Bijan Robinson, and there's a debate in Superflex who's 1, 2, whatever.
Yeah,
I think that same debate is going to persist, but with Marvin Harrison, but with Marv versus May. Not Marv versus Caleb.
Okay.
I think it's Marv versus May, not versus not.
So I do have a question for you, Ray. Right off the bat. Could Marv be a first-round startup pick next season? Now, it doesn't mean he's ahead of Caleb, but still a first-round startup pick next season, right behind Jefferson and Chase.
Well, could he? Absolutely, Jay. He absolutely could. What do you think?
I think it'd be really close. I mean, both of us love Marv. We've talked about how he's basically BAM tier for us right now. What he did last season, not winning the Blitnikoff, is an absolute travesty in college football. 77 receptions, 1,263 yards, 14 touchdowns, 16.4 per reception. Touchdowns was 4th in the country. Yards was 6th in the country. There's literally nothing Marv can't do. He's unstoppable, should be wide receiver 1. And I think you can make the case for a first-round startup pick because I just don't know if there's a prospect we've seen since Chase who's had this hype, and he might have even more hype than Chase had coming out. Yeah,
he's incredible, Jay. Incredible. I mean, the talent, the skill set of Marvin Harrison Jr. Let's just go look at the 24 wide receivers. We're just going to go down this list. Running backs, 2025, G5, there goes 23. So 24, Marvin Harrison, there he is at the top of everything, right? This is just insane. And he did this on the field, Jay, with Emeka Egbuka. He did this with Julian Fleming. He did this with other Ohio State contributors, and he's still out here, yards per team pass attempt, 3. Nobody in the class is even close to him, man. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
It's insane.
Reception share, 28%. Weighted dominator rating, 32%. Like this, like analytically, physically, and then he's nothing like his pops, right? He's a completely different build. What is he? 6'3", 210 pounds, something like that. It's going to be a conversation next year. Marvin Harrison, I don't think it's going to be versus Caleb Williams, but I do think it will be versus North Carolina quarterback Drake May, Jay, who is incredible and outstanding in his own right. So you got some of Drake's stuff pulled up because he's a freaking monster.
So we talked about Caleb, basically top 5 across the board, and Drake really isn't that far behind. 4,321 yards, 38 touchdowns, 7 picks, 82.4 QBR. So just behind Caleb in yards. Touchdowns, he was 5th in the country, again, a little bit behind Caleb there. A few more picks and 82.4 QBR. But like you mentioned, the big thing with May really is his rushing ability, and that's where he really will make his money. And so I think, you look at both these guys, and you've talked about it. Caleb is QB1 in the class for now, but especially for fantasy, there could be a world where May is actually more valuable because he gives you a little bit more on the ground. So that's where I think it'll be interesting how people feel about May, because in the real world and real life, he might not be QB1, but he gave you 700 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground last year. Caleb Williams ain't doing that for you. And, I think it's funny how a few years ago, everyone was on Sam Howell, And it just feels like Drake May is like the actual talent that Sam Howell was supposed to be, with the rushing upside, the cannon of the arm, the accuracy, and doing it with guys at UNC that really aren't super high draft picks. Now, we had Josh Downs when he was available, but outside of that, he's kind of making that team what it is. And I think that's a big part of it as well. USC has a ton of talent, and much more so than they have at North Carolina. So you have to give May a lot of credit for being neck and neck with Caleb with much less talent on the roster.
Yeah, and look at May's analytics, his production metrics, right? QBR just a notch a tad below that of Caleb Williams. His adjusted yards per attempt a little bit lower than Caleb, higher completion percentage than Caleb Williams, and then almost double the rushing yard share on that team for Drake May. Highest, of this list in the class, 32.8% of his team's rushing production. That is,
if you remember,
at 6'4", 220. At 6'4", 220.
Big, much bigger than Caleb, because Caleb's only 6'1", I believe, 210. And if you remember, Ray, Jordan Backus, our director of analytics, had Drake May as his QB1.
Analytically, yes.
Right? And I do want to bring up one other thing, because I was looking at some PFF passing grades this offseason, and I combined it with some of the rushing grades. Of all the quarterbacks drafted in the top 60, which we expect both these guys to be, this is the list of quarterbacks that have scored an 85 or higher in this composite metric. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, since 2017. The other two guys who are in there from the 24 class are Drake May and Caleb Williams. And I think of all the quarterbacks I read in that list, those are a bunch of hits, right? You have to be able to pass the ball first, and all those guys are hitting in the NFL right now, starting quarterbacks in the NFL. That should tell you all you need to know. When you make a list like that with those guys, you want to draft them very high, and they will be very valuable for you in fantasy.
Well, Jay, there's another quarterback who Brugler also has going inside the top 10, and we can no longer call him the golden mullet because he shaved it off, and that's UT quarterback. Look at him clean cut right here. Quinn Ewers, Jay, who has him going number 6 overall to the Washington Commanders, Jay. This is our guy, Matt Bruning. Shout out to Campus to Canton. Quinn Ewers, clean cut Quinn. Look at old Quinn Ewers there, looking all clean cut, no mullet.
Right? I'm not a fan.
But number 6 overall to the Washington Commanders. I am a fan of Quinn, and you look at his production metrics, even on. Listen, he's not going to give you anything on the ground. That's not his game, right? But QBR 65, so a little lower, a little down. Everything is a little down. His kind of completion percentage was not very. Golly, if people hated Anthony Richardson, what would they do with Quinn and his 56% and no rushing production, right? But high 5-star kid, and he's got all the arm talent in the world, Jay. All the arm talent in the world. You see his production right here. Dane says he has him right now early in as QB6. And remember, he skipped his senior season of high school, right? He was at Ohio State when he should have been, he's young. He's a young, raw player with all the physical tools. And everything that I've heard this year is people wanted to make it a competition at Texas between him and Malik Murphy, him and Arch Manning. And it is no competition. It's his job. Now, we'll see how that plays out in season if things start to go a little south. But I believe Quinn is going to step it up and play well. And he has all of the talent to be a top 10 pick. So I have no problem with Dane having him at 6 right now. You said you weren't a fan.
So I need to clarify that because I don't need Matt Bruning coming after me. I'm not a fan of the cut. The golden mullet should have remained. He has a great nickname. Could have been there, but he's got to get clean cut for the cameras. I get it. His PR team is probably all over him for the mullet. But yeah, we'll see. Quinn's a bit of a projection right now for sure, but I would definitely take him over QB4 on Dane's list right now. So I definitely don't hate that at all.
All right, Jay. Let's kind of let's stick. I don't have any other quarterback highlights to pull up because those are kind of my 3. So for me, in this 2024 class, right now, it's those 3 quarterbacks, Jay. Now, if you scroll down the board, down a little bit further, Dane does have Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy going 15 overall. I know Dane puts in the work, but he hadn't started working on the beast yet. I don't know about this one, man. I need to see.
It's bold.
It's a name that's in 2024. People know the name. The name is there. J.J. McCarthy, you look at the production metrics, though, right behind Drake May and Caleb Williams is 3rd in the class. He's got all the physical tools as well. He can make the throws. He's very athletic. a little more inconsistent game to game, and that may be a product of Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan scheme. But he's got the talent and he's got the upside. Right now, Jay, I honestly have no QB4 after Drake and Caleb and Quinn. I just don't. You've got J.J. McCarthy battling it out. You could talk about K.J. Jefferson from Arkansas. And there's also another player who was drafted at the quarterback position in this mock at 23, Michael Penix Jr. Now, Jay, I just had to go look. This is going to be his 6th season in college. And you look at his injury history, man.
Woof.
It's double ACLs, AC, shoulder, clavicle broke. Like, his injury list is long. If this is his 6th season, I don't know how old he is, but he's got to be close to what Hendon Hooker was coming in. Maybe I'm wrong, but we just did this year. We just did it this year with Hendon Hooker. Oh, Hendon Hooker, he's a coach on the field. They love him. He's not falling out of the top 20. And then the NFL was like, we can't take an injured quarterback in the first round that's 25 years old. Michael Penix is going to eat this year. I actually have money on him to win the Heisman Trophy this year. Really? I got some money. I do have some money on Michael Penix to win the Heisman Trophy. But being a first-round pick today, I don't know, man. The Hooker saga has me a little nervous to put Michael Penix as a top 5 quarterback in this class, but he's got everything working to help him get there. It's going to be a good offense. He's going to put up monster numbers. He's got one of the best wide receivers in the country next to him. So he's going to have everything, but 6th year, multitude of injuries. It's just, he was at Indiana in 2018. That was Lamar. Yeah. What is that? The year Lamar got drafted?
I think it was the year he got drafted, right after. But it's a funny point you make, right? Like, you have Hendon Hooker doing this in the SEC, which is one thing, and they'll be doing it in the Pac-12, which is another conversation. But he was second in yards with 4,600. He did have 31 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a QBR of 81. So, again, like, he's hitting all the numbers, but like you mentioned, he's doing it in the Pac-12. He's not... And while we knock Caleb for that, people aren't drafting Caleb at 1 because of the numbers he's putting up. They see the potential and the upside, and that could be there for Penix, but I'm curious how people feel about him. McCarthy, on the other hand, though, I'm worried about his size a little bit, Ray. Yeah. He's not even listed at 200 pounds. Right? So that's he's 6'3", but he listed 196.
NFL told us this year it don't matter. Bryce Young's 175 and went number 1 overall, so it doesn't
Bryce
matter.
Young is, again, a different beast, right? Different beast, but he did have 300 on the ground, though. So I think that McCarthy, for fantasy, at least does have some rushing upside as well, as we've seen. I'd be curious what he would run, because he'd probably run pretty fast. But again, with that slender frame, I'd be curious if people knock him for that, because, again, he's not Bryce Young. We all know that.
Right.
So if you're not going to be Bryce Young and you're going to be small, I'm curious how the NFL would feel about that.
All right, let's go to the running backs, because none of them were inside of Dane's round 1. And I don't think there should be a round 1 running back today from the 2024 class. But I want to start out with my top guy, man. Rocket Sanders out of Arkansas, Jay. This is a big boy. He's big. He's explosive. He's physical. Raheem Sanders. If you look at, and we'll pull it up, right? 6'2", almost 230 pounds. For Rocket, this is a guy in Arkansas. We've seen him put backs in the league. Felix Jones, Derek McFadden, Peyton Hillis. You know, they're going to run the ball. It's going to be ground and pound with this Razorbacks team. He and KJ Jefferson should put up crazy stats this fall for the Razorbacks, Jay. This is a running back that I'm very, very high on. Very, very interested to see how the NFL values him, because he does fit that sort of mold of a prototypical 60%er, Jay, in the NFL. And then we take a look at his production metrics, right? You know, right there at the and this was overall running backs with Bijan Robinson and Chase Brown. There's Rocket Sanders, 24 eligible at the top of the class. And then you sort that out by his class, and he's right there at the top. Like, he's the only one, 1.93 yards per team play. You look at his reception share, 13%, not bad. You look at the list, it's tops. Out of everybody in the 24 class, Will Shipley, nobody had a higher reception share than Rocket Sanders, and then you see his dominator rating right there at the top of the class. So, again, a lot of this was because Travion Henderson, Big Hendo, had a down year, was injured majority of the year for Ohio State. But how you feeling about Raheem Rocket Sanders?
Man, ever since you put me on to Rocket Sanders, I've been all in, right? Doing what he did in the SEC is just crazy. 222 carries, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 6.5 a carry. And like you mentioned, Ray, 28 receptions, 271 yards, almost 10 a reception there, and another 2 touchdowns. He probably should be tops in the class. We'll see what Big Hendo does. You know, he was obviously a highly touted prospect as well in his own right. And we've seen the talent from the moment he stepped on the field in that Minnesota game, his first game ever. He took, I believe, a 70-yard screen pass to the house. So we see the talent overall. I think that Sanders, with his size, you know, depending on how Hendo ultimately weighs in, Sanders, you can tell, 6'2", 230, like that's legit. And he's doing that in the SEC week after week. I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't RB1. Now, of course, injuries and things can happen, but Hendo would be the only guy I think that could possibly contend with his production profile and what he's doing in the SEC year over year. I'd be curious if he could beat this season for Sanders, but he probably could. He probably could. If they give him some more carries and some more work, he may just even beat what he did last year and go over 1,600 yards on the ground.
Well, speaking of Big Hendo, here he goes right here. TreVeyon Henderson, running back from the Ohio State. I mean, a lot of people still have him as RB1 in this class. Down year this year, was injured, split some work with Mayan Williams, who's going to be a 24 eligible guy, probably be a drafted guy as well, not as high as Henderson. But Jay, give us what Hendo did his freshman season as a true freshman at Ohio State. What did TreVeyon Henderson do to the Power 5 conference in the Big Ten?
So that's what's crazy, right? I just listed off Raheem Sanders' stats in his second year, and in Henderson's freshman season, 183 carries, 1,250 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 27 receptions for 312 yards, 4 touchdowns. So even in his freshman season, he had a better receiving profile than Raheem Sanders had in his sophomore season. So we'll see if Henderson is healthy, we could potentially see a 35, 40 reception season, maybe even higher than that.
Higher than that.
And as you can see, 6.8 a carry, which is still higher than Henderson's 6.5, or sorry, than Sanders' 6.5. So he just needs the work, needs the receptions, but he could be RB1. He very well could be in his freshman season. He really showed, you know, the touchdown upside, the broken tackle ability, the vision, the speed. As fast as Rocket Sanders is, Henderson sometimes looks like he can get better angles, a little bit faster, but both of them top tier prospects and deserving of probably top 7, top 8 rookie draft picks for sure.
Let's go through some more, because a player that I think he fits today's NFL, definitely a 60%er. I don't even know if he's 20 years old yet. Is Braylon Allen even 20 yet? But Wisconsin running back Braylon Allen, Jay, I'm coming around more and more and more on the fact that this dude is going to get drafted and get drafted high. I saw some other mocks where he is mocked as high as as player 15 overall in the NFL draft. Braylon Allen, 6'2", 235 pounds, played Division I, Power 5, college football at running back at 17 years old. What?
Just insane. Insanity.
What?
Insanity.
My goodness.
Just a monster.
Braylon Allen, I mean, the workout videos are legendary from this kid. And I'm calling him a kid because he is a kid, Jay. This is a young man who's out there terrorizing the Big Ten and other conferences the like, and he's a teenager. It honestly makes no sense to me. He's incredible, Jay. And then we look at some of his stuff, his advanced production metrics. He's right there at the top of the class, right underneath Rocket Sanders. 1.62 yards per team play. Reception share, low. Little concerning there because he has not been utilized as a pass catcher. When do Wisconsin running backs get the ball, right? Jonathan Taylor didn't catch the damn ball. They don't ever catch the ball unless you're the pass catching back. But 27.8% dominator rating. Braylon Allen, Jay, what do we have?
I mean, it's crazy. He actually had a better freshman season than he had as a sophomore. 1,250 yards both seasons, 11 touchdowns, 12 touchdowns both seasons. Last year, he did have 13 receptions, 104 yards, nothing really there. But yeah, I'm curious to see what he does in this new system. He was on Twitter, right? Finally, no more 8-man fronts, 9-man fronts, right? Bringing in, because they brought in, was it Matt Rule they brought in?
No, it wasn't Matt Rule. Was it Matt Rule? No. Who they bring in?
In my head, it's Scott Fritter or Matt Rule, but either way, Matt Rule might have went to Nebraska. But the bigger thing here is I'm curious to see what he does.
It was Luke Fickell. Luke Fickle.
There you
That's
go.
it.
Luke Fickle.
Yeah.
But the bigger thing, right, is that Ray, and I do feel bad for you because there was some rumblings of him transferring to USC.
I know.
And that got everyone really excited. But Braylon Allen will be a stud. But he's a guy that could easily have 1,600 yards in a season. So I'm curious how they deploy him. Like I said, sophomore season was down a little bit, but producing still at a very high level. 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns both seasons. The yards, and in the freshman season, 6.8 yards per carry. So right there with Big Hendo, like we talked about before.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other names on this list. I'm not as high on Will Shipley as others. I'm not as high on Devin Neal, but I am very high on a player that nobody really talks about. And I think come draft season next year, people are going to be all over Bucky Irving from Oregon, Jay. You talk about just a dynamic running back. Bucky Irving, listen, if you were in on some Devon Achane, you're going to love Bucky Irving. Listed at 5'10", 194 pounds. This is a dynamic Oregon player, Jay. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He's explosive. He's a big play threat waiting to happen. And again, a name that most in the dynasty community, I'd probably say 99% of the dynasty community, that small percentage of people who play C2C or Devy, they know who Bucky Irving is, but most people don't. But this is a guy who also should have a big year at Oregon this fall. Now, is he going to cement himself as a top 5 guy? I don't know. I don't know about that probably now, but somebody that I'm really high on, and I'm excited to see how the NFL uses the Devon Achanes and some of the smaller running backs and kind of project what they may think about Bucky Irving, who is a fantastic running back. Jay, you got some stats pulled up for him?
Yeah, that's a really big point, Ray. I think depending on the success of Devon Achane, that may lend itself to something for Bucky Irving. Like you mentioned, 156 carries, 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, 31 receptions for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, right?
Sir.
So do it all back on all fronts. 31 receptions in a season for a running back is phenomenal. People think, 30 receptions, blah, blah, blah. That's not that great. Christian McCaffrey can have 100. It's like, no, that's not how this works. It's not how this works in college. I believe in college, 20 receptions for a running back is good, and 30 is like borderline elite. And for talking about a guy who isn't an every down back, who's more of a scat back. He kind of, he really kind of went into that Travis Dye role when he vacated and went to USC, but phenomenal talent. Like you mentioned, if he can kind of fill that role, be what Achane was, come in at the size Achane was, run fast, there could be a world for him as a 3rd round pick. I think I'm a little worried he goes that route. We go all in, and then we got to be like, he's only 180, right? He's only he's not quite as fast as Achane, but you see the talent when you watch the film. So I think there is a world where he could be this high, and I like that you putting him on this list because he won't be on most people's lists, and I didn't even really know who he was until you mentioned him.
Stanley, that's why we do this, Stanley. Good show. You put me on the 3 players already. That's what it's about, man. Shit, like we all know the big names, but who else could pop and who else should we be thinking about for fantasy? And another guy, Jay, who's not on the radar for many people, but again, at his size, profiles like a 60% running back, and he is going to smash this season because there's a good chance that this team wins the ACC this fall, and it is Trey Benson from Florida State, Jay. Big, 220 pounds. I think Benson's 5'10", 5'11", 225. I think that's his size. He's an Oregon transfer.
6'1", 215 is what he listed at.
6'1", 215. Good Lord. Trey Benson. Speed, power, physical. You watch the highlights and you're like, my God, he looks like a little bit.
He looks like he runs a little upright though.
I don't give a shit. Don't start all of that. Don't start your upright running scouting right now, Jay. I don't care about any of that. He's going to be an absolute monster, workhorse for Florida State. And then they've got just as good a chance to win that conference as any other team in there. I'm not counting on Miami just yet. And Benson and Jordan Travis are going to be a big reason why. You got Johnny Wilson out there playing wide receiver, big Johnny Wilson, 6'7". But Benson is going to put people on notice. And this is a guy that you can see. Just like you got those the physical freaks, Jonathan Mingo, rising up during the pre-draft process. When you've got somebody this big, this physical, this fast, and an ability to play on special teams and catch the ball in the backfield, Trey Benson is a guy that I cannot wait to see play this fall. And I see Jordan Backus right now talking about Bucky Irving in the chat, Jay, talking about just His
Wow.
Bucky has my highest RB analytical grade for the 24 class right now. Talk to him, JB. That's why you tap in to what JB's doing. You tap into Destination W. You keep you one step ahead. But Trey Benson, Jay, what do we got for Benson?
154 carries, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 6.4 carries. Like you mentioned, if he turns into a more featured back this year, gets even more carries, could be a guy who really puts himself on the national radar. So, yeah, Lindsey Mack said he's throwing dudes away like soggy paper towels, and he really was, running through those arm tackles, making guys miss. And I think the vision, too, is a little bit understated for Benson. For a guy that size to have the vision he does is definitely what kind of sets him apart. And I think, to your point, Ray, he could be a size speed freak when the combine rolls around next April.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other good running backs. Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. You still have Blake Corum from Michigan. I can't have every highlight on here. Jarquez Hunter, Auburn, is a player that I really like. I've been taking towards the back of Devy mock drafts. Devin Maccabee, I think it's Maccabee from Purdue. Saw somebody in the chat bring him up, must be a Purdue fan. But yeah, there's a lot of talent at the running back position, and we get some bigger guys. Braylon Allen, Rocket Sanders, and Trey Benson all over 215 pounds. Love it. Love to see those sizes at the running back position, Jay. All right. We already talked about this guy, Super Marv, right? There's no question, Jay. This is wide receiver 1 in the class. We're not even going to play around with Marvin Harrison Jr., Jay. But another wide receiver from the same team, Emeka Egbuka. Right now, my wide receiver 2 in this class. Little different receiver than Marv, but Emeka can flat out fly. And you think because it was Marvin Harrison, you think because it was Travion Henderson and Mine Williams and all this other stuff, that there's no way another receiver could have put up monster numbers in that Ohio State scheme. No way, right? Jay, what did Emeka do last fall for Ohio State on the field with Marvin Harrison Jr.?
74 receptions, 1,150 yards, 10 touchdowns, 15-6 a reception. He was better than you really expected from him. Coming into the year, we knew it was going to be Marv's team, but Egbuka did his thing, right? He was still a top prospect. I think he was a higher rated recruit than Marv was. I believe he was a 5-star. And so you look at what he's doing on the field, and even early last season, I saw him projected as a 2nd-round pick, but it seems like he's worked his way into 1st-round status and probably will do so
first round.
Even better this year, right? And it's funny because there's Marv, but it really does remind me of Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and it's not because of necessarily that's how high they should go in drafts, but Egbuka could be that Olave type of guy who can just win through the route. And I think that's where he's really going to thrive. 6'1", 205. If you didn't mention the size, I wasn't sure if I heard that or not.
I didn't mention it. Excuse me. Yep.
But yeah, no, the size is all there. The speed is there. The route running is there. The production will be there. Just another great Ohio State wide receiver that they're throwing to the league.
I love him, man. And then you look at him amongst his 2024 counterparts, right? 2.76 yards per team pass attempt, 3rd in the 2024 class. And then if we just look at him in comparison, Jay, to the rest of the wide receivers, all top 15 in college football last year, including 2023 guys. There he is right there. You see Jalen Hyatt, Trey Palmer. There's Emeka right ahead of Marvin Mims, Zay Flowers, Xavier Hutchinson. I mean, this is a talented group of wide receivers in 2024. You've got Dorian Singer, who transferred from Arizona to USC. Your boy Troy Franklin, that we both love a lot. Keon Coleman, transferring from Michigan State, but another one of these top wide receivers. Let's see where he ends up. But the other guy, kind of a forgotten guy, had a little bit of a down season, if you want to call it that. But Xavier Worthy out of the University of Texas, Jay, big play threat, kind of gives me Deshaun Jackson vibes when you watch him play because he is so freaking fast and he's just a home run threat waiting to happen. I'm not going to say he's not D-Jax, but that's just the vibe I get when I'm watching Xavier Worthy. Now, the big thing with X Worthy is he dropped a lot of passes this year, so you got to kind of clean that up. But if he can, and if Quinn Ewers can take the next step for this UT offense, then Xavier Worthy is going to be a big beneficiary and a big reason why, and he should put up stupid numbers in this Sark system this fall. Really excited for Xavier Worthy, 6'1", a little bit smaller, right? 165 pounds. 24% of the team's reception share last year, still good. Weighted dominator rating over 28%, 33% total dominator rating, 1.89 yards per team pass attempt. Xavier Worthy, Jay, talk to me.
I mean, yeah, Ray, you kind of hit the nail on the head. The problem for him is the size and the down production last year. Broke out as a freshman, 62 receptions, 981 yards, and 12 touchdowns. But last season, only 60 receptions, 760 yards, and 12.7 with 9 touchdowns. So part of that probably was because Quinn was supposed to come in and he got hurt. So they were dealing with issues at quarterback. And I'm curious how they open up this system this year, not having Bijan Robinson, right? When you have a star running back like Bijan Robinson and Roshan behind him, who's a great runner himself.
Right.
You want to run the ball, but hopefully this year they can just air it out with Quinn, showcase his talent, showcase Worthy's talent, and really put up some big numbers for both of those guys. And I think that, we'll see how people feel about Worthy in the end. The size may hurt him a little bit, but we've seen a lot of guys go into the NFL with success that are a little bit smaller. So I get the Djax comp there, but I think that he could put up really big numbers in the Big 12 this season.
Yeah, and I believe, where did Dane have? Let's go back to Dane. Did he have a Mecca inside?
He did, yeah. He was to the Bengals at 28.
At 28. So, okay. All right, let's get a little spice here, because he's got a Mecca at 28, but at 19, he's got LSU wide receiver. I told people last fall, Jay, I was like, this is the one you want from LSU. I told everybody, this is the one. This is the one. Malik Neighbors out of LSU. Yeah, man, he's a dog. 6 foot, almost 200 pounds. Absolute beast for LSU. Came on this fall, and if you watched any of the LSU games, there was no debate. I mean, he was better than Kayshon Boutte in every aspect of the game.
Yeah.
High point in the ball, the athleticism. They use him in the running game. This run right here in the bowl game versus Purdue, insane. I think recruiting analytics, shout out to my frat brother Corey Yates, had him topped out at, I believe, close to 23 miles per hour on that run versus Purdue in the bowl game. Neighbors is a cat that should absolutely explode with Jaden Daniels' second year in the Brian Kelly scheme. He's the unquestioned wide receiver one. They got a couple of guys, Brian Thomas, Lacey there. They're going to have a nice receiving core this fall at LSU. But Malik Neighbors, Jay, again, he's on this list. If you made this list that JB puts together, that means you've got the analytical profile to back up and warrant some significant consideration next year. And Malik Neighbors is that dude, Jay. Can you give us the stats for Malik last year?
Yeah, so 72 receptions, 1,000 yards, only 3 touchdowns. But again, part of that was Jaden Daniels. And Ray, I bet you didn't know this, 475 passer rating, perfect 2 for 2 for 50 yards and a touchdown. Season. Malik Neighbors, sneaky upside as a passer in the NFL.
We don't want Neighbors throwing any damn passes, but yeah, he's going to be, and there he is right here, down the list a little bit in that 24 class, right? But still top 15, 1.8 yards per team pass attempt, pretty good, 22% of the team's receptions. Weighted dominator rating, 21%. And he just needed the touchdowns. Needed a couple of more touchdowns to really bump him up. And I don't know if this includes, the bowl game, but I think he had like 2 touchdowns in the bowl game, so that kind of boosted it up a little bit for Neighbors.
In the Georgia game, 5 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. So that was the SEC champ game.
Say that again. In the SEC championship game versus Georgia, what did he do?
5 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. And then against Purdue in the bowl game, 9 receptions, 163 yards, and a touchdown there. So he ended really strong. And with Boutte gone, he will be like the guy. And Boutte had a great game against Georgia as well. But I think, to your point, he will be the guy and could be looking at north of 1,400 yards this season for LSU.
Yeah, and the other receivers. So for me, that's sort of my early, top 5 right there that we showed. Yeah. Marvin Harrison, Emeka, Xavier Worthy, Malik Neighbors. That's 4. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. After that, you've got Troy Franklin. I'm excited, Jay. Malik Benson, the junior college transfer that's going to be playing at Alabama. All reports are he's looked pretty good for the Alabama Crimson Tide over the spring. Really interested to see what happens with him, what happens with Troy Franklin, Dorian Singer, catching passes from Caleb Williams. You still have Mario Williams at USC. Aranda Gadsden, you see him right here. So there's a lot of wide receiver shuffling that will go on, but I don't believe there will be any shuffling at the top. Lock it in. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be wide receiver 1 in the class. Let's move on to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then the tight end position, a position that is very difficult to figure out in most years. But, Jay, again, much like the quarterback, much like the wide receiver, Jay, there's little debate. who tight end one in 2024 is, and that's Georgia beast Brock Bowers, Jay. Yeah.
This guy's been him from the moment he stepped on at Georgia.
From the moment he stepped on the field.
It's just insane what Bowers does weekly. And there's anything you need him to do, he can do it. Anything. And what he's doing, 54 receptions, 600 yards, 5 touchdowns that's for Sanders, actually. Let me pull up his stats. I'm looking at the wrong guy now. 62 receptions, 942 yards, 7 touchdowns, 15 yard end. Like, this guy should be a top 10 pick. And I forget who said it on Twitter yesterday. There's predictions he could be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. And Dane Brugler had him at 7 to the Patriots. Nothing will make me more happy than to get Brock Bowers. Oh, yeah, almost 1,000-yard receiving tight end. My goodness, sign me up for that.
How happy would you be about that? Now, here's the thing. Tight ends are... just look at no chart looks like this chart. This is the 2024 tight ends. And a player that is not on our list he is on the list, but he didn't have the highlights that I needed to pull up. But Ja'Tavion Sanders would have been another one that we talked about today. So I'll talk about him right now. 5-star. I believe he was the number 1 athlete in his class 2 years ago. There was some debate, would he play defense or would he play tight end? Good move by JT Sanders. He's tight end and he's a monster, right? So both of these guys are listed at 6'4". Sanders, when you look at him, looks significantly bigger.
250 versus
than Brock Bowers.
For Brock Bowers.
He looks significantly bigger. Now it's interesting because 1.61 yards per team pass attempt tied for both of these guys. Look at the reception share, Jay. JT Sanders, 22.6. Brock Bowers, 17%. Weighted dominator rating. Who's in the lead? Ja'Tavion Sanders. Dominator rating in general. Who's number 1? Ja'Tavion Sanders. I'm not saying
like that though.
Well, they don't have to like it. It's just the data. I'm just reading what's on the screen. Like, JT Sanders is a freaking beast, man. These are your top 2 tight ends in 2024. I like Bryson Nesbitt out of North Carolina. We'll see, because it may only be a couple of guys, Walker and Nesbitt, for Drake May to get it done with at North Carolina. You got Michael Trigg, the USC transfer that's playing at Ole Miss right now. And then a couple of other guys that aren't on this list that I'm really high on. Let's go back to Florida State and talk about South Carolina transfer Jaheim Bell that's now playing at Florida State.
Yes.
What is Jaheim Bell's position? The hell if I know. He's just good, right? He's not an inline tight end. He's like a Y, Chris Cooley, H-back kind of guy. But Jaheim Bell is going to be one of the most dynamic playmakers in college football as well. But at the top of this class, it's these 2 guys, Jay. It's JT Sanders. It's Brock Bowers. What do you have? You got any stats for either of those 2 guys?
Yeah, so Sanders was 54 receptions, 613 yards, 5 touchdowns. And I think the bigger point here is his first season really seeing any significant playing time, right? So to get that reception share, dominator rating, and maybe, Ray, what we are discounting a little bit is we're saying, well, Worthy had a bit of a down year. Well, maybe that was because of Ja'Tavion Sanders, right? And his reception share and him getting involved in the offense. And he clearly showed he deserved that, right? He's right there with Brock Bowers in the class. So if a lot of teams believe that Sanders is the more complete player, we've kind of seen this happen before. And while I think that it's funny that Mayer wasn't the tight end 1 in the class this year, wasn't the tight end 2.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And it's the receiving tight end who goes first. Again, in previous years, we've seen the more complete tight end go tight end 1, maybe not next year. And with the profile that Bowers has from the moment he stepped on the field, he probably is tight end 1. But Sanders is definitely deserving of a guy you want in tight end premium and even just regular leagues kind of later in drafts.
It's interesting. It is interesting that you bring it up that way, because it did seem like Mayer was, he's tight end 1, man. There's no doubt about it. And then you get to the process, he wasn't tight end 1. He wasn't even tight end 2, right? Is there a world, and I didn't even know, set the school single season record for 54 catches in really his first true year playing the tight end position. I mean, he's the number 1 athlete in his class. He's a physical freak. He's got the size. He can play inline. I trust in Marcus Myers, who's in the chat. Shout out to my dog, Marcus, man. He's as tapped into UT as anybody. I mean, he fucking played there and won a natty there. So, yes, he's tapped in and very active with the Longhorns football program. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with JT Sanders versus Brock Bowers in the process. I think it's still going to be Brock, but Brock he's not your traditional inline tight end, and that's okay. You saw the Buffalo Bills spend a first-round pick on Dalton Kincaid, and you don't really want him lining up and blocking like that as well. So as we're looking at this class, Jay, we kind of talked through about 13, 14 different players. And you saw a couple of those guys selected in the first round of this mock. I saw somebody in the chat earlier, Ray, give us some IDP stuff. I'm going to be working on some defense this year because I love the game. I love football. So I don't know if it's going to be IDP, but definitely with the Draft Network.
Ranks.
Definitely with the Draft Network, I'll be doing a lot more stuff with the complete football, right? O-line, D-line, defense, all of that stuff. Just using the scouting ability to look at some other things, not necessarily for fantasy purposes, Jay. But as you look at this class today, Jay, how do you feel about it compared to what we just had in 2023? I don't know. For me, I just want to see it play out. I'm not about to sit here and say it's better, it's worse. I will say that I think Marvin Harrison Jr., there's not a doubt about it. He would have been wide receiver 1 in this class, and I don't think that's a hot take. I believe that Caleb Williams would have been QB1 in this class, and I don't believe that's a hot take. Now, after that, I don't know, right? I don't know where the NFL would have valued Emeka versus Jackson.
I think Drake
Smith
May would have probably been QB2, right? Which is another big thing as well.
I don't know, Jay. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far yet. Right, I don't know.
This draft seems slightly more top heavy than the last one. I think that at the top, there's heavy hitters at every position, which I think gives it a little bit more than we saw this year. It'll be curious, I think, how the running back shakes out because there isn't a Bijan Robinson.
No.
But there's two very capable starting running backs, right? And I think I've talked about this more so in the Discord than I have, on the show. But the downfall of this class was that we were all in on running backs. And I think in any class that is now running back strong, it's not going to seem as good because we really want the wide receivers to have strong draft capital. And when you have tight ends like Brock Bowers coming in, Caleb Williams coming in, like there's studs every position. It's just how deep is that running back pool? But I think regardless, we will get ones that get good draft capital that have a ton of talent. And then it's supplemented by really great wide receivers, quarterbacks, and some great tight ends as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good class, right? Again, I'm looking at the mock. I don't know about Penix Jr. You've got Bo Nix there. We didn't talk about Bo Nix. There's a lot. Tyler Van Dyke, Devin Leary, the transfer from North Carolina State to Kentucky. There's a DJ Uyongalele, Spencer Rattler, Jaden Daniels. I mean, there are a lot
Keaton
of
Slovis? Maybe?
No. It's over for King Keaton, man. The once first round Devy pick is no more.
You sold me on the dream. Back in what?
I didn't sell you on shit. No, you sold
the dream. Sam Howell and Keaton Slovis.
Stop.
Spencer Rattler, QB1. DJ QB1.
Who said that?
We were there, Ray. These are the Devy worlds we live in. We lick the wounds, but we can never forget.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man, but that's an early look at. So if you're trading for 2024 today, here's the actionable advice. We get through all the fun. If you're trading for 2024, I would really hope that it's a top 3 pick. That's where I'd want today.
So you're just with top 3 so far.
I want it to be I would want it to be one of the worst teams in the league because I want a shot at those top 3 guys right now, right? I could stretch it and say Bowers and Emeka and say 5, but it's hard. I'm looking at the shittiest team in my league. Would you put a running back
in there?
Not
to
today.
Make it a 6.
Not today.
Not a running back, but RB1. Like RB1, you'd say is probably locked into the top 6, regardless of whether it's Travion or Raheem Sanders. So you feel pretty good probably about it. You feel really good about a top 3 because you're getting Marv May or Caleb. And then you could probably stretch it to wide receiver 2, Brock Bowers, and RB1.
Brock Bowers only in tight end premium leagues, only in TEP leagues. If it's just a regular PPR league, half PPR, I don't care if it's Brock Bowers, Jatavian Sanders, or God himself. I'm not taking him inside the top 5. So it's just not happening. Only if it's tight end premium, and the premium's got to matter. 175, start 2 tight ends, or 2.0 for tight end reception. That's the only way I'm taking a tight end inside the top 5 like that. So if I stretched it today and just said it's PPR, it'd be like 5 or 6. It's a good class.
Yeah,
good class.
5,
I'm excited.
That's good.
I'm excited to watch it work out. Excited to watch it play out. It's going to be fun this fall. And as we look back on this 9 months from now, there'll be new names, and some of these names will fall out. I mean, we had Kayshon Boutte in there last year. He fell completely out. So we'll see how it changes. But I'm pretty excited for it. A little reprieve from all the monotony of 2023. All right, y'all. Appreciate you. Thank you, Cold World TDE. Said dope show, fellas. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Put some production into this one. Gave y'all some graphics.
Yes, sir.
We did have a super chat here we got to get to From Austin Smith, first time my work schedule has allowed me to be up this early on the West Coast. Love the content. Had a blast during the draft streams. First rookie draft was all wake up. A-Rich and Mingo. Jay, got him some A-Rich and Jonathan Mingo. Appreciate you, Austin, for tapping in the chat. Thank y'all for being here. I hope y'all have a fantastic week. Tomorrow night, tap in with me. I'll be doing a Best Ball Mania 4 underdog draft live on Destination Devy. We're going to build a team together. If we win, I'm not going to share it with any of you, but I will thank you all for your services and helping me get there. We're going to do that tonight, so make sure you use the promo code WAKEUP. Get in the biggest fantasy football tournament ever. Subscribe to the All Gas newsletter. We got dope podcasts coming out all the time from all of our awesome creators. Shout out to everybody at Destination Devy. Shout out to y'all waking up with us, watching, listening, engaging in the comments and the chats. We love y'all. Oh, we got more super chats. Jay, did you see more super chats?
Do we?
Who else sent it? Well, y'all know, man, I'm good for it. I didn't see it. They need to code it better. I will get to it and I'll answer it on Monday. Y'all know I don't do y'all like that. We got to get up out of here. Y'all have a fantastic week. We'll see y'all on Monday, man. I'm out of this thing. Peace. Before y'all close off of the video, I just want to say thank you for checking out the content on Destination Devy. Really appreciate every single view that we get. And the only thing that I ask is that you hit the thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel, and if you can, comment below for the algorithm. Really helps the channel grow. Now, if you want more exclusive access to me and the entire Destination Devy team, patreon.com/allgas gives you that access. Now, if your money's a little funny, we do have free content for you. Make sure you subscribe to the All Gas newsletter. There's a link in the description of this video below. And subscribe to the Destination Devy podcast radio feed, where we got all types of shows hitting airwaves every single week. Now y'all can get out of here. I appreciate y'all tapping in. It's All Gas all the time. I love y'all. I'm out of this thing. Peace.